welcome to the first Taking the Myth of 2017. Joining me to tackle the massive issues is Iram Ramzan. Welcome, Iram.
Hello, how are you?
Great, I think my intros are getting more professional, if anything.
You've had, a million months to perfect it. Had a very long break after Christmas.
Yeah, lazy. Didn't do anything in January. You been up to much?
Yeah, I've been crazy at work. It has been, I wouldn't have found time to sit there and analyse anything, considering how there were so many reports coming in non-stop about the absurdities of Trump. So,
well,
it was a lot.
I was going to bring up Trump right off the bat, not because it's a main topic I want to focus on, just to point out an observation of how unfun everything's become because of him. I thought when he got elected, he's named after a fart as far as British slang is concerned. That's funny right off the bat. I was looking forward to the satire in the headlines, and I just assumed there'd be... it's not the result I wanted. It's not the result a lot of people wanted, apparently. But I thought there'd be some cutting-edge satire. I thought there'd be brilliant discussions, and it's not. Everyone's just really fucking angry and horrible and nasty, and it's consumed everyone's attention. And we're engaging in endless debates about who it's okay to punch and who it isn't. And I can't go through my Twitter feed without seeing that orange troll's name just lighting everything up. I shut Twitter down and I check my news applications. First 6 stories, Donald Trump. So then I go and check on the sport and assume that's a safe bet. And there's something there about Trump as well.
No, he's there as well.
So
he's here, he's there, he's everywhere.
He is. He's literally like a Trump. I even went to a Batman news website just to thought, well, there's a link there on Facebook. I'll see what that's about. Look at me playing down the fact that I check out Batman news. But that's beside the by. And there was even a Donald Trump story on there. So it's inescapable. It's time consuming. And then there's even people getting annoyed at you for not covering Trump, as if this Trump issue somehow going unreported and no one's covering it.
Yeah, nothing's allowed to trump basically.
Trump will not be Trump. That should have been that. That's almost as good as Make America Great Again.
Yeah. It is everywhere. Seriously, I've got to that point where I actually don't care anymore. Unless he
fires a nuke.
Strangles a puppy, I don't really care what he does next.
Yeah.
Unless he gets a new haircut or something, that will be news. If he gets a haircut, if he stops tanning himself, that I think will be earth-shattering news. That's when I'll pick up the paper and say, oh, you know what? I'm actually intrigued by this.
It's just become unbearable. I've almost got to the point now where I'm thinking of just, there's that function on Twitter now where you can choose, filter out certain keywords in tweets. I'm just thinking
can you do that?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of adding Trump just for a week and just to see how much that might improve my general sanity, not having to see his name.
Twitter would just be empty, though.
It would.
It would just be there are no tweets to show.
There's so many people who just dedicate their entire feed now to tweeting Donald Trump as if this resist #resistance, as if Donald Trump's like, oh shit, I'm not going to go ahead with this now because Dave from Utah has tweet quoted me some very mean words.
Oh my God. So I take it you didn't go on the anti-Trump march then?
No, and what's funny? I was actually in Manchester that day. I was meeting friends for so
was I.
See, we keep missing each other. But I got on the Metrolink, and there was a guy protesting Trump. He had red trousers, which is alarm bells are ringing straight away.
Oh my God, red trousers!
Red trousers, and he had.
And no one thought to say anything to him.
I put a complaint in after I got off the truck. We've got to have. That's social justice as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. But he had a young girl with him. It may have been his daughter. I assume it was. I'm not sure. She can't have been more than 9. And she had a big placard with her in crayon, and it's basically said Donald Trump smells bad. Now, firstly, can we get a verification on that? I don't know if anyone's listening who can comment or put forward any expertise on
this is the era
essence of Trump.
Fake news,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And secondly, maybe that's a good question to ask. What do you think about taking kids to political protest? Do you think...
I'm glad you actually raised that point, because when I was out in city centre during that protest, I didn't see it, thank goodness, because I had, better things to do, like nothing. And I saw a woman come into the cafe, and there was a child with her, and the child had a placard. I couldn't read it properly because it was upside down, but I knew it had something to do with Trump. And I thought, I mean, maybe it's because, sometimes there are childcare issues, you're busy saving the world, and there's no one to babysit your child, so you take him or her, you take little Ollie or little Muhammad to the protest, and then eventually they end up holding placards or wearing a sign. It's like I feel really uncomfortable with that, regardless of what the protest is about, even if it's for gay marriage or free speech, even if it's something good. I still feel uncomfortable with kids being in political rallies, because I've seen images of children before at political rallies where these are pro-Hamas ones where kids have like a Hamas banner or something tied around their head. It's really creepy. I don't know about anyone else, but I find it very creepy. Let them run around, draw stuff, or whatever kids do nowadays, play with their iPads or something.
It's Pokemon Go, isn't it? You know what? Yeah. I had a Kinder Egg yesterday for the first time.
Kinder Egg? Oh,
in a long time. And it came with a little slip with the little toy, and I could actually scan it with an app.
What?
I don't know. This is new to me. I used to, last time I had a Kinder Egg, I think it was Teeny Terrapins. Now you can scan it and download an app on your smartphone and or tablet.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I remember the days where Kinder Egg toys were naff. Like you just looked at this plastic thing and thought, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? And now you can scan them and with apps, and wow, okay.
Yeah, I just used to make bombs with vinegar and baking soda and put it in a little capsule. That's the kind of thing that would get me on a list nowadays.
You are on a list.
I am on a list. All the lists.
Let's face it. We know you're on a list.
Well, let's get Trump out of the way, I suppose, because I think we do really need to talk about this Muslim ban. So-called Muslim ban. You have to call it a Muslim. This is another thing. You can't have any nuance on the. You can't really say, well, let's have a look at what Donald Trump's proposing. What does it mean? What doesn't it mean? How do we best describe it? What labels fit? What labels don't? You have to walk the line that he's evil and wants to liquidate all Muslims. I think that's about the line that you can toe to without getting any criticism. So this Muslim ban, as far as I can see, it kind of is, but kind of isn't. There's room for discussion. It's been put on hold now anyway. What are your views on it?
Yeah. There've been, a few discussions about this so-called Muslim ban. I mean, obviously, in a way it is because they're all Muslim majority countries, but then other Muslim countries aren't on it. And if you're a Muslim from any country apart from those 7, was it, you can still go to the US. So you're not banned if you're Muslim. I mean, there was a story in the news today about a Welsh teacher who's not allowed to go to America. And
has he had an explanation yet?
No, he's not. But The thing is, I know of quite a few people before who've had their visas to America rejected, and it's nothing to do with whether they were Muslim or not. It just, sometimes it happens. It depends on your political activities, I think, as well. So we never know. This Welsh teacher, as cute as he is, have you seen those eyes? We never know. You don't know what secret he's hiding. He could be could be the next, I don't know, Jihadi John. I'm joking.
Richard Reed,
he's
perhaps.
I'm joking. If you are listening, Welsh teacher, call me sometime.
Everyone's outraged. Let's put an appeal out for this chap now. For Iram, can make this some sort of dating service. Maybe even compete against Second Wife. It could really take off. So this chap, this Welsh gentleman, he's a teacher as far as I can see. He was coming back. I think he was coming back from like Iceland or something to New York. You can see I've done my research this week, and he was denied well, he was actually removed from the plane. I can't, was he denied access or removed? It was one of them. And all the headlines are Muslim ban, but the people...
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why, when I was watching the report, when they finished interviewing him, they started talking about Trump's Muslim ban. I thought, this has got nothing to do with this particular incident. I mean, he's not from any of those countries. It could be for any number of reasons. I mean, I don't really want to make much comment on this teacher because I think that the facts will emerge in due course. So,
yes, well, I'm skeptical of these stories anyway because they become a headline and you do a little bit of digging and it turns out there's a bit more to it. What I am finding a little bit dubious is that nobody's come out with a statement. I think this story even broke yesterday, I believe, or the day before perhaps. I would have thought that given the amount of heat the airline's getting in the American security forces, somebody would have said something. I do believe he's owed an explanation. I think that's
at least
reasonable.
give him an explanation.
I don't even know if I can be outraged about it because I think you've got to hear both sides.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that people are very quick to just get outraged these days without waiting for the full facts to emerge. I mean, if it turns out they did eject him purely because of his background, then yeah, you can be outraged and angry about it. But wait, because we don't know what happened just yet.
Yes, it's always my point that not everything bad a Muslim does is because they're a Muslim. Equally, not everything bad that happens to a Muslim is because they're a Muslim. So you've got to look at the fact.
Bigot.
Yeah, sorry, just putting the victim card in the bin.
But I seriously, I do hope the airline do provide us with an explanation, and this is all just one big misunderstanding because he's too cute to be evil. He is.
All right. Well, I mean, that's basically, that should be the biggest. I mean, we have all these endless debates about profiling at airports. Maybe it should be cute, not cute. There should be a cute line and a not cute line. And then we just take it from there.
See, everyone's going on about the Trump ban and people's immigration policies. Mine would be a lot simpler. It would be, are you attractive? You can come in. Are you not? Get out.
Sounds fair to me. Okay, well, I want to move on to something that I don't want to move on to, but I don't really ever want to talk about it, but I end up dedicating a lot of my time to it because it remains topical and the hysteria is just all-consuming and utterly embarrassing as far as I'm concerned, and that's the topic of Milo Yiannopoulos.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's how I feel, and I can't seem to find the line here because everything I say about him, I think he's terrible. I don't agree with these views. I think he's a nasty piece of work. I think you could describe him as a bully even. I don't even think he's interesting. I'm not as impressed with him.
He's a twat with really bad hair.
So that's...
That's the comparison I would make with him and Trump. You know how people are comparing Milo and Trump, like how people say, oh, Trump is a Nazi or Milo is a Nazi. But if you were to say Milo and Trump are the same, you can base it on their really bad haircut. There is a link there. But yeah, he's a twat with bad hair.
Well, yeah, and I made the point. I mean, I've met a million people like him. I know the character type. I just know this salesman, sort of egotistical reinvention, be whoever you can be to whoever you're talking to. I mean, he changes his persona as often as he changes his hairstyle, and I'm just
like
not...
Mo Ansar, basically.
Yes, it's exactly that. The reinvention, that I'm one thing to you and one thing to another. Oh, I'm a flamboyant, camp, homosexual guy, ticking all the stereotype box. Oh, hang a minute, I'm a very stern, serious journalist. Oh, hang a minute, I'm actually a comedian. And it's kind of like the flitting between them things when it suits. It just sends alarm bells off for me. And obviously his rhetoric, if he's your go-to guy on these big topics... I think you've got problems. But my only thing is, unfortunately, he has become absolutely necessary to keep an eye on because he's the way you can measure the state of free speech, unfortunately.
I do agree with you on that. I think the problem is that people were just being maybe slightly hysterical on him, and I think he was given too much attention and a platform for just the wrong reasons. He's a guy who thrives on publicity and just says outrageous things just, for the sake of it and for the attention. And it does get people's attentions, and then, you know, people get outraged really quickly, and then, you know, that feeds into his ego, so it makes it even worse. So in a way, we are to kind of blame for that. I'm not saying we shouldn't have challenged Milo. Yes, we should have, but some of the rhetoric that was out there, it was just so, in a way, quite hysterical, and I think he got away with getting, you know, far too much attention for way too long.
Yeah, and I actually think it's not necessarily his views that got him where he was. It was the reaction to them. It's not, you know, when people are burning shit and smashing stuff up, that gets you on the news. When you get to the stage and say feminism is cancer, you know, it doesn't really go far. But I think what's interesting now is, I mean, he's had pretty awful views, and he's had this contrarian bravado and, you know, not very serious ways of engaging on important topics for a while, and he's managed to get away with that. No one really cares when you say mean things about feminism. You know, trans rights aren't part of everybody's life. It's still quite a small part of society in terms of taking up people's attention. There needs to be more awareness on that. I'm not playing down the issue. I'm saying that when people say nasty things about trans, it doesn't mean a whole lot to most of the people. Now, you start failing or speaking incoherently or making very strange or incriminating statements on the age of consent and sexual abuse with minors, people start paying attention all of a sudden. I think that's what's happened. I think he's found a topic.
Somebody please think of the children.
Exactly.
And they did.
That's just the one topic where the Conservatives can't bat it away and say, you know, stupid libs, stupid libtards or whatever. And the leftists who have stayed in his camp can't really bat that away either and say he's been misrepresented. I mean, to be clear, I mean, this is the rhetoric again. The rhetoric on it now. There's people saying he's a paedophile, basically, which, as far as I can see, that's okay. I don't know where that's been plucked from. That's a bit mental. From what I can see is, I mean, I've noticed as well, these clips have been selectively edited as well. But he seems to advocate, or he seems to endorse the idea that it's not necessarily sexual abuse when, you know, between a 13-year-old and an adult male. Words to that effect. Now, to his credit and in fairness, he's completely retracted that. He's done this big mea culpa and, damage control essentially. And whether or not he's sincere or just trying to save his arse, I don't know. And I don't really care. But I think this might just be the one thing that's the nail in the coffin. I mean, he's not going to go away. He's always going to have a presence. But I think this might just put him down a different route now. I mean, his book deal's gone. He's resigned from Breitbart. Do you think we might be able to go a couple of weeks without talking about Milo Yiannopoulos?
Oh, bloody well hope so. I mean, Trump and Milo are the two things that everyone's talking about. I'm so frigging sick of it now.
Do you not think people are going to look back with embarrassment and shame at the hysteria over this one man and the things that he said at events that you didn't even have to attend?
When did Milo make these comments, that essentially make him a paedophile to all his haters?
They've been out there for over a year. They've been, you know what I think's happened? I mean,
why are they only emerging now, these comments?
Well, it's one of two things. Or maybe they're both interconnected. First is, it's obviously a concerted effort. I don't really think the people who are making a big deal of this care about children and the age of consent. They want to destroy Milo, which is fine if that's what you want to do. Destroy him with his own words. But secondly, he was on the Bill Maher show, which is an interesting thing because it was fun to see him not in control and be belittled and be the object of ridicule for a change. He didn't handle it well. He didn't come off very good, and it was nice. And I was thinking, why couldn't that just be the case? Why can't people treat him like that, debate him like that, and show him up for the sort of joke pantomime villain that he is? So my point being that he went on this massive show with a massive audience, got loads of exposure, and I think people may have just started thinking, well, who is this guy? Looked a bit deeper and dug up these clips from a few years ago. I think that might have happened.
Yeah. Well, that's what's happened before. I mean, people did that with Mo Ansar. He was everywhere. He was regularly hailed as this moderate Muslim social and political commentator, unemployed loser, and
the river.
And And what it took was for people to just carry on digging and digging and destroying him with his own words. And that's what should have been done with Milo a long time ago. You know, respond to him in a proportionate manner and destroy him with his own words. And that's what's happened. He's been ruined by his own work. And I'm just hoping that we won't have to see more of this clown anymore. I mean, do you think that's it? Do you think that's the end of Milo now?
I think what's happened is do
you think he'll get to join Mo Ansar's band?
Milo on drums. I can see him converting to Islam, actually. He's that contrarian. No, so I think what he's going to exist in some form. He's always going to have a following, a loyal following. So whether he does video content, he was already talking about setting up a new media enterprise. But I think now the legitimate channels, the legitimate platforms for him, such as universities, such as Breitbart, media organisations, and book deals, things like that, official lines of communication might just be closed off to him.
Yeah, again, that's what happened with Mo Ansar as well. I mean, if he does want to give some sort of comment, he's on Russia Today, and no one takes that channel seriously because no one else will touch him with a barge pole. So yeah, I think you're right. He'll probably be out there still, but he won't get these big platforms like he did until now. So yeah.
But I mean, it says something to me that in popular culture, in the mainstream conversation, because it's not, I mean, maybe I'm a victim of my own echo chamber here, where all I'm seeing is this Milo stuff because that consumes the kind of circles I'm in, but I don't think it does, because I see it on the BBC. It was going across the ticker banner on BBC News today about Milo and stuff like that. So it is kind of a mainstream event, this, and I think it's rather sad that people, for something to fight against, like the biggest Nazi, fascist, what have you, racist, white supremacist, the big threat coming from that area in people's minds is Milo Yiannopoulos. That's the big bad. That's the thing we're going to concentrate on. That's the thing I'm going to die in the trenches for, this guy and shit he says. And I just think, how comfortable is your life? How free of any actual oppression are you that you have to dedicate all your time to criticising this one clown?
The guy is probably a threat only to his own hairbrush and the sinkhole.
Yeah.
And you're right, people, I'm not saying they shouldn't care about these things, but you think about what's happening in the world. I mean, look at these anti-Trump marches. You have a right to march and protest. That's the sign of a free society, that you are able to do that. Good. I'm glad. But, on some of these marches, you had groups like MEND and the Islamic Human Rights Commission and Muslim Association of Britain, like bloody nasty groups who are marching alongside these well-meaning liberals and people on the left against Trump. So you're basically denouncing Trump as a fascist, but you're marching with people who are basically fucking fascists. These people will, if they ever came into power and they ruled, you would be second-class citizens or third-class citizens, and then you really would know what it's like to live under a fucking fascist state. It's absolutely ludicrous.
So, this Women's March, when this happened, I thought, well, this is a good idea. This president has said some ridiculously horrible things in the direction of women, about women in the past.
Yes, we can agree on that, yes.
So if any group of people is going to be really concerned about what he's going to do now he's in power, I would say women have got a good claim to that. And so to protest that makes sense to me. They want to do that. That's great to see. But then you kind of peel back the layers of what's being said and who's organising it, and it seems like they're protesting something from another planet. Was it not Linda Sarsour was the main architect of this women's rights
this is
march?
Someone who thinks Sharia law is amazing. Someone who's denounced Ayaan Hirsi Ali as well. Thinks she should. What did she say? She should have her vagina taken away because she doesn't deserve to be a woman. Yeah. First of all, this is someone whose name means cockroach, by the way.
Sarsour does.
Yeah,
Oh, I like
apparently it means bug or cockroach, and that I think is very apt.
Yeah.
And then on this march, you had women wearing like hijabs
Yeah.
as well, like trying on hijabs. I mean, fuck you. Yes, I agree with the right for women to wear what they want. You want to wear a hijab, you go ahead and you wear it, especially in a country like America where you're free to wear it. But fucking hell, actually try on hijabs in solidarity, making little girls wear them when in most bloody Muslim countries you don't really have that choice. There are places where they force you to wear it. And there you have these feminists who are trying on hijabs. What the hell?
What world are we living in when the hijab becomes a Western symbol of female emancipation? How did that happen?
It's because it's basically identity politics. Basically, you know how bigots on the right will lump all Muslims as one?
Right.
Well, the left does that as well. You know, liberal people, those on the left, they tend to do that as well. They see Muslims through one lens as well. They see them all as being victims of oppression. Like, look at these poor brown people. They're oppressed by the West. Their countries are always being invaded. And yeah, you know, Muslims are victims of bigotry, racism, and yeah, I accept that. But, you know, in those communities, you have oppressors as well. You know, the same, you know, the Muslim man who you think is being demonized by the security services or the police force or our politicians is the same one who's going to be denying women in his house the right to dress the way they want, or he will refuse to give his wife a divorce, and then she'll have to go to an all-male panel of judges at a Sharia council to get a divorce, which in most cases they don't. And if they do, they have to pay a stupid sum, and these councils aren't regulated. So yeah, on the one hand, you think you see them all as oppressed, but then they're not as well. They're oppressing their own people. So that's what these sections of society do. They, you know, on the right, all Muslims are aggressors, they're rapists, or they're all potential terrorists. And for the left, all Muslims are victims regardless, and we must support them no matter what. Even when they've turned out to be actual fucking jihadis, they are given support. And we'll probably come on to this quite soon. You know, there are people out there who've flown off to, you know, they've been to Afghanistan and Pakistan and trained in jihadi camps, but they're defended by Amnesty, for example. Amnesty International have defended these jihadis in the past because they're just seen as victims of the US war on terror. So this is what happens when you play identity politics, basically. That's my rant over. Sorry, I went on a bit there.
Well, it leads me nicely into, I want to speak about a bright young man from Manchester. Iram, he's called...
Is it you?
I said bright. Born Ronald Fiddler. Now, I don't think the significance of how much he sounds like a Batman villain should go unmentioned.
I'm not surprised he changed his name to Abu Zakaria al-Brittani. That sounds much better than Ronald Fiddler. My God, that sounds like a pedo name. It really
does, doesn't it? So I think was he known as Jamal al-Harith as well. So he's from Manchester. He was born Ronald Fiddler. He converted to Islam, changed his name to Jamal al-Harith. Did some time in Gitmo, in Guantanamo Bay. Was detained there, detained in Afghanistan, I believe. Spent a couple of years in Guantanamo Bay, released in 2004. Got reports are suggesting that he got £1 million in compensation for that. Have you heard this?
Yes.
Okay, so he gets a payout, and then he turns up in Mosul carrying out a suicide attack.
I mean, a guy who was detained in Guantanamo.
Well, we need to seriously consider our behaviour as Western society. We need to understand how badly we've behaved in order to make this man act this way. So
I'm sure he was a beautiful young man before this.
yeah.
Actually, he did have a nice smile.
Well, he
I'll give him
did.
that.
That's worth pointing out because there's an image of him. It's doing the rounds in the press, and it's an image of him actually in his vehicle before carrying out the bombing, I believe. And he's got
like, hey, about to kill some Shias, peace.
Yeah, some kafir going down right now. So he's got the biggest pearly. He's got, you know what? He'd actually see. I found a flaw in your profiling here. He's got quite a cute smile. I think he'd waltz right through Heathrow. Oh. So we need to whack out the details of your profile on another episode. So he's got this huge grin, this smile from ear to ear because this guy's about to carry out this suicide mission. This isn't the look of a martyr who's like, I'm giving my life for a greater cause, and I'm not happy about it, but something needs to be done. This is the look on someone's face who knows they're about to be with the virgins and the angels. This man knows. He doesn't think it. He's not unsure. He knows he's going to paradise, and that is something not enough. Well, I don't think practically anyone even accepts or talks about with these acts of jihad.
I had a feeling he would be in the news in due course because I think the year before last, his wife, Shuki Begum, went to join him. Now, she was from Oldham, and she apparently went to Syria to find him, to bring him back. And then she was eventually allowed to return. So she was saying that he's over there, he's carrying out some sort of dangerous missions, and she was worried for him. And I thought to myself, there's no way that guy is coming back alive. There's just no way. I mean, he's gone out there. He clearly, if he wasn't convinced by his wife and his young children that he needed to come back to the UK and stop all of this, there's no way on earth he would come back. So
with you mentioning that he's from Oldham, this is a northwestern.
Well, he's not. His wife.
He's from Manchester. Isn't he? From
Oldham. She was. I don't know if she was born there, but she was definitely educated there. She lived there for a while. I don't know if she still does now, but he was from Manchester.
Okay.
I don't know if they lived in Oldham or Manchester, but if he's originally from Moss Side, I don't know if that's where he continued to live, but that would probably come under Manchester Council, I think.
Yeah, definitely with Moss Side. Yeah. So the point I was going to make is, like, I think Americans might have a harder time to understand the rhetoric coming out of Europe in terms of the Muslim population, especially the extremist Muslim population, but it's not some far removed problem in the UK. These are people that are a couple of streets down. They're our neighbours. I don't think there's a town or city in this country now that's not been touched by extremism in terms of acts of Islamic extremism in this country or travelling out abroad to Syria. I mean, you know, the imam kicked to death by the supporters of ISIS in a Rochdale Park is somewhere I used to walk through all the time. It's round the corner. This guy's from Manchester. Me and you both live in Greater Manchester. Bradford's rife with it. Birmingham's been rife with it. So the north in general is pretty bad. Then you've got things that have happened down south in Glasgow. It seems to be that there's not a part of the country that's currently untouched with some example of Islamic extremism, and I don't think that's something that comes across to people who live in America who may go their entire life without ever meeting a Muslim. Exactly.
It's just when stuff like this happens, it really does hit home. You think, oh my God, there's just no place where it hasn't been affected or it hasn't affected people. It can happen anywhere, whether it's Manchester, Birmingham, London, Cardiff. You know, this is pretty much on our doorstep. And it's happened. I mean, look, those girls from Manchester as well, those schoolgirls as well. Yeah. I think were they twins, the Somali girls. I can't remember what happened to them. I don't know if it turns out one of them died or they both, I think, found husbands, jihadi husbands. And one of their husbands, I think, died in some sort of suicide mission. And I just remember seeing their tweets afterwards. Like, they were just very blasé by it, you know, almost like, OMG, husband died, lols, hashtag, whatever. it was like, seriously, it was absolutely bizarre. I was like thinking, hang on, it is the kind of stuff that you expect to see in some sort of satirical program.
Yes,
but,
like the Real Housewives of ISIS. Oh, I was on South African radio, by the way. I think, don't you? I think you heard it talking about that.
Yeah.
And I think you noticed this as well.
Was that even shown on TV?
Yes, I think it was shown, but I think a lot of the controversy happened after it was shown, so it already been and gone by the time people were outraged about it. And I think people falsely assumed it was a weekly thing.
I didn't get a chance to see it before getting outraged.
But the radio host, lovely guy, had a really thick South African accent, so when he was interviewing me, he was like, and what do you think of the Real Housewives of ISIS? It's like,
of ISIS?
ISIS. And it took everything I had to keep it together on that little mini interview, which you can see over at my YouTube channel, youtube.com/gspellchecker. There you go.
Well, coming back to this Al Harith guy, there's a picture of him smiling next to Muazzam Beg. Oh, isn't that a surprise? They knew each other, but they went backpacking in Afghanistan together. That's always been a favorite of hikers and travelers, isn't it? Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it?
Northwest Pakistan. It's just a coincidence that all the terrorists end up there, but yeah.
Draw from that to what you will.
But the thing is, what's funny is the papers at the time, the Mail and the Mirror, they defended him. They interviewed him and ran a piece in which he was allowed to just spout all sorts of lies about being detained at Guantanamo. He was going on about how prostitutes were hired to gyrate in front of him, to antagonize devout Muslim prisoners. Now, I do think people are going to be, divided on Guantanamo because they'll say,
what's the TripAdvisor rating?
I'm not so sure. I'm sure you will know, right?
3 squared meals, but drafty. I think is the
drafty, and your own bucket, or if there's no bucket, you
ensuite bucket.
Just pee in the corner. There's a nice little spot there. But I think that's probably the reason why some of these men who have turned out to be very dangerous men have got a lot of sympathy from, the papers and maybe some of the public, because they were detained and not really charged with anything. Yeah. And I think if these men had done something wrong, then they really should have been tried properly, because I don't think it's a coincidence that all of them, if you, I think the Telegraph has published a piece about that's showing what's happened to the rest of these inmates. All of them were in Afghanistan or Pakistan, and there's no way they were there for a holiday or something like that. We know why they were going there, and then most of them have gone on to become actual terrorists like this guy. And then you have groups like Cage, which claim that they're only defending people who have been tried without due process. All this nonsense about due process. It's absolute bullshit, because they are actual fucking jihadis. You are defending actual terrorists and jihadis, not suspected, actual.
Yeah.
And they're just allowed to get away with it.
Well, since we're on the theme of Muslims in the Northwest behaving badly, there's a sitcom right there, Muslims behaving badly.
I'm sure I'll be the star of that show.
Well, yeah. Well, what can you tell me about this so-called new Trojan Horse plot in an Oldham school?
Well, I shall tell you.
Tell away.
Basically, it's the Clarksville Primary School. It's in Oldham, and the majority of the children who attend there are of Pakistani background, and they're Muslim. And the head teacher, Trish O'Donnell, she's been really worried for her safety that she worked from home. And she sent an email to Oldham Council quite recently that she said she had very strong reasons to believe that, quote unquote, a Trojan Horse agenda is being played out. the NAHT, which is the head teachers union, said they were supporting members in the Oldham area with a variety of apparent Trojan horse issues. So I'm guessing with that, it means that there might be another school that's potentially going through the same thing. It's mentioned a few people in this article. One of them is Nassim Ashraf, who was a governor at that school at one time. And his wife, Hafizan Zaman, apparently she made remarks to some staff members that because they're Muslim women, they should be wearing a headscarf, they should be covering their heads. She also complained because there was a Hindi song that was played out in class and children were sort of just learning a dance move to it, and she wanted to complain to the council. She was lobbying non-stop, saying that they're trying to change the religion of these children. They're Muslim children, they shouldn't be learning about Hinduism or becoming Hindus. Both of them, this husband-wife duo, apparently they're very active in that area, and they've been trying to, intimidate staff, undermine the head teacher, and trying to exert their type of Islam on other people. So that's basically what's been happening. And since then, the guy, Mr. Ashraf, he took to Facebook when this article was published, to release his own statement, and he's telling people to share it widely, and he's saying that this is just nothing more than a smear campaign to demonize, of course, the contribution that Muslims make in our local community, and he started talking about how fake news is making the rounds, etc., etc. So yeah, that's what's been going on at this one particular Oldham school, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's happening at any other schools.
Yeah, I mean, we've got precedent for it, haven't we? We've had a big so-called Muslim takeover plot uncovered in the West Midlands and other places as well.
Yeah, and the man who was governor, Tahir Alam, he's trying to get, he's trying to reverse the decision to ban him from schools. And guess who's supporting him? 5 Pillars ran a piece in which he was allowed to spout his nonsense and say how he needs £10,000 for legal fees to challenge this court decision. Well, fuck you. I'm not giving you any money, Mr. Tahir Alam. I wouldn't want you anywhere near children. I'm sorry. But I agree with this ban. But yeah, the one in Birmingham, though, was, I think, on a much larger scale, whereas this Oldham one seems to be on a slightly smaller scale as far as I'm aware. But unfortunately, this is what happens when you have any area where there's a majority of Muslim pupils in schools. It's not necessarily the majority, but it's always this minority who are very, very active, and they're very very much into their political Islam. They want to exert their influence and intimidate a lot of people. And unfortunately, what happens sometimes is because they play the religion card, they end up thinking, they probably feel a bit guilty about it as well, and they go along with some of these changes. And it might start off with something small, like a halal meat or no pork or something like that. Then it grows into something bigger. It might move on to bigger things, maybe no pee during Ramadan or nothing else during Ramadan, children being allowed to fast in the month of Ramadan, and maybe more. So this is what happens. And then unfortunately, I think then people are too scared to say anything, because if they do, they'll be accused of being racists or bigots.
My question is, why in the UK do we have schools that are majoritively Pakistani Muslim? That's the overwhelming majority of that school. How do we get to a point where we're encouraging segregation?
But the thing is, schools are a reflection of their catchment area. So if you have a majority Pakistani area, for example, then the schools are going to reflect that.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas if you go to secondary schools are going to be a bit different, obviously, but with primary school, it's always going to be a case of, well, it's in your local area, that's where you go. And if a lot of children there are Pakistani, if the families there are Pakistani, then the children in schools are going to be mostly Pakistani. I don't know if there's anything local authorities can do to change that. I suppose it was
the wrong question. I should really ask why we've got pockets of the country that are a majority one particular race or religion or whatever. Yeah. And I think it's just a consequence of the failures of multiculturalism, really. I don't think it's particularly conducive to a culture to say, well, you can have your culture over there exclusively and we'll have ours over here, and you never have to mix or integrate. It can't be good for them kids. I mean, some of these kids may not have even seen a white person.
Yeah, my brother goes to a school where 99% are Pakistani. He doesn't really mix with other people, and then healthy. He'll go to mosque after, where it's not healthy. I mean, when I was growing up, when I went to primary school, I was the only Pakistani girl in my class, and I did have to face some racism at school. I won't lie.
Good.
That wasn't good. Fuck off. It wasn't a great experience, but on the whole, I didn't face as much racism as maybe my mum and my uncle's generation did. It wasn't as bad as that. So I grew up mostly surrounded by English people, really. Then I went to mosque, and then there were mostly Pakistani people there. Then secondary school was a bit more of a mix. There were some white children, Pakistani children, Bangladeshi. So I think I had quite a diverse experience there, quite diverse upbringing. Whereas now children aren't really going to get that, because people will mostly settle in their areas and live around people that they know. I mean, they're not going to move out of, if they've grown up in a certain area, they might not want to move out. They'll live closer to their families. And that's why you have, in a lot of these places, an entire street, a street where there's one family that will live on the same street, or even next door to one another. And that's why you get these schools where everyone's exactly the same. There's just absolutely no diversity for them at all.
What you want to have, you don't want everyone to be the same. Like, I don't want everyone to share my culture and the things I love, and I just want everyone to mix is what I want. I mean, I like, with you saying you were the only Muslim girl in your school at primary school, I think we had, like, when I was in primary school, there was one black girl, and that was it. And then in secondary school there was more diverse, and we had people from the Far East as well as the Middle East. And then by the time I got to college, it was just bare Asians, Iram. No shortage. Bare Asians. And it's nice because that's a good valuable experience for me, integrating with people of different backgrounds, learning about people, forming relationships with people, making friends. And that's a really enriching experience, and it broadens your horizons, and it can help cut down prejudices quite easily. Just, someone said some horrible things about black people, and I'm thinking, well, I've got a black friend and she's absolutely awesome. That can't be true. Them things don't map up. Just little things like that in a kid's life can be really helpful.
I do worry about the next generation. I mean, in one way, I'm slightly optimistic, because I think some of the issues that we have now, they might not have to go through. But then at the same time, if they're going to these schools where they're only meeting people of their own kind, is it really going to, is it really going to help change their worldviews or shape them to become valued members of our society? I think it's a really, really important subject. It's something that I'm really interested by, and I think this is what Trevor Phillips is going to touch upon. His documentary has Political Correctness Gone Mad. It's out Might be out by the time we get the podcast out. But that's going to be on, the issue of multiculturalism, the so-called metropolitan liberal elite and things that that's going to be quite interesting. But I guess no one really I think on the whole, people would probably feel a little bit uncomfortable telling people where they can and can't live, because that doesn't seem very liberal. But then at the same time, is it better then to have these ghettos in towns where people probably don't speak that much English because they're only around people from their own home countries, and they don't mix with other people? That can't be healthy in society.
I put a tweet out. I mean, we're just coming up to an hour mark. I put a tweet out earlier, a kind of ask us anything tweet. Do you want me to see if we've got any responses?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, let me see. I'll let you take the first one, which, let me find one that's not offensive. Okay, here you go, Iram. This comes from Tim Draper. Tim would like to know if Steve McLaren should start with Ben or Nugent up front on Saturday against Villa.
What was that, sorry?
It was a shitty football question.
Yeah, exactly. And I refer you to my previous answer.
Okay, well, Willis Leroy, which is possibly the coolest name on Twitter, Willis Leroy, he's asked what's the root cause of atheist infighting, and I think I know the answer to this, and it's pretty simple.
I think it's Jews.
It's the Jews. Oh, you beat me to it. Okay, so no. So the problem is defining yourself as an atheist doesn't mean an awful lot in terms of a community or political ideology or shared values.
I think that's just it. People still have that community mindset, don't they? That just because they're like, oh, you're atheist, so you must be like that. But I thought that's the whole point of being atheist or humanist, that you don't want to subscribe to a set value, these set values, and that you must behave in a certain way. I mean, surely that's the whole point, that you want to behave in a way that you think is rational and logical to you. Sorry if I've stepped on your web designist toes there.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, it's been likened to herding cats, hasn't it? I think it's more useful to rally around terms like liberalism or, free expression or secularism, actual constructs that you can uphold and get behind. Atheism, realism, and to be fair, I struggle with the whole atheist community idea. It's almost exclusively considered American when it's talked about online, without any reference to any of the issues that pertain to, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Spain, Italy, France, Germany, China, any of the other places on the planet. I find it's very American-centric. So, whenever there's infighting, quote unquote, infighting in the atheist community, it usually means a couple of Americans have called each other dicks on blogs. And that tends to be how it goes down. So I'm not actually one of these people, as odd as this is going to seem, that defines himself as an atheist. That's not a defining characteristic of me. Going out there and saying I'm the atheist guy. It's not some. It's just it's something that interests me, and I talk a lot about it because of the way it pertains to issues of freedom of expression, to human rights. The general discourse. But as a identity, I don't know, because on the other side, I understand the need to normalise the word atheism. It'd be nice to get that accepted and not thought of as a dirty, you baby-eating Satanist every time the word atheist is uttered.
Yeah, so fuck you, Leroy.
Yeah, Leroy. No, it's a good question though, because it is a good question, because this
no, in all seriousness, yes,
this silly infighting is kind of. I don't know what people are expecting though. You get a group of independent thinkers together, then you throw some political events into the mix, and they're not all going to say.
Independent people refuse to agree on everything. Yeah. Well, that's kind of the point.
And the point I'd make is,
the thing is though, I think it's because we're as humans. Maybe it's because we've gone we've been so tribal for so long that we just can't get rid of that mentality, that tribal mindset.
People use the word atheists as like a synonym for rational thinker or skeptic, and even people who are anti-atheist do this. They'll say, I thought you was a skeptic. I thought you was a rational thinker, to mock you, because it has, fortunately, it's become a very nice synonym as far as I'm concerned, but it's bullshit. Atheists are some of the most irrational and non-skeptical people I've come across in discourse. Just ask them about 9/11. Just disagree with them on their political sacred cow and just see them churn out logical fallacies like a bullshit generating machine programmed to piss you off to the end of time.
Oh, that's a good point. It's true. It just because someone's an atheist doesn't mean that you automatically know everything about them. It's like, just because someone is of a Muslim background or Hindu background or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean, you might be able to guess some things about them or maybe about their background or their family, but it doesn't tell you everything about them. And it's the same with atheists. All you know is that they don't believe that there's a God. That's all that you know about them. It doesn't tell you about their entire world viewpoint.
Agreed. Okay. Next question, just more of a comment. Shaw Birdie's asked, how is Jock doing? I miss him. I think she's referring to a Scotsman abroad. He's fine. He's doing well. I speak to him every now and then. I'm sure he'll definitely join us on a future episode, I would imagine.
Yeah, I miss this sweary Scot too.
I actually asked him if he wanted, very late notice, asked him if he wanted to chime in on this one. He's out having dinner with family, so if he values his family, if he values family more than us, so be it. Ant has asked, is Piers Morgan a true Brit or an American spy in search of a job? I actually feel a little bit sorry for Piers Morgan. Oh, I felt dirty saying that.
Oh, you disgust me.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm
going to edit that out. I fully deserve any punches that are coming my way for that comment. Right, so I dislike Piers Morgan to the point where I'm actually offended by his face. And he was on Real Time with Bill Maher the other day with Jim Jefferies. Did you see this?
The only time I have ever come on the side of Piers Morgan.
Yes, and I really didn't want to, and I'll tell you why, because I love Jim Jefferies. He's an unapologetic, offensive comedian, says whatever the fuck he wants. He goes after Islam. He's an outspoken atheist, and he doesn't give two shits if people say, you can't say that. And I think that's what a comedian really needs to be. Whether you think he's funny or not, I just think he's valuable. So if I'd have wanted anyone to put Piers Morgan in his place, it would have been this loudmouth, wisecracking atheist comedian to slap him down on the Bill Maher show and embarrass this stupid, nationalistic, almost religious demagogue in some of the things that he says. And what happened is they brought up this issue of the Muslim ban, and Piers very calmly suggested that actually it's not a Muslim ban for pretty much close to the reasons we've already discussed on this podcast. And before he could really iterate his views on this, Jim Jefferies just jumps in with a middle finger and a fuck you, and he gets a roaring round of applause, and everyone on Twitter's congratulating him on his amazing takedown of Piers Morgan. And
it's not a takedown. No. You just stuck your finger up. That's not a takedown.
Is that what leftist arguments become now? Fuck you, middle finger, everybody clap, end scene. I mean, everyone was talking about it like he'd just done an absolute hitch on this guy, and did he also say that Trump is not a Nazi? Or
comments? Yeah, he made comments along those lines, and he was just this comedian just went
Hitler
off on what
straight away. He said I think he just invoked Hitler off the bat. I'm not even sure Nazism was the topic. He just said give him a chance, Hitler didn't kill all the Jews on the first day, or something like that.
Yeah, for goodness sake. I mean, Trump, for all his faults, Trump is not some sort of genocidal maniac.
Nope.
He's a twat. He's so many things, but he's not a genocidal dictator, for crying out loud. Or does that make me a Nazi now?
Well, it makes you a Trump sympathiser.
Is that my final solution right there? For fuck's sake.
Yeah, so I love you, Jim Jefferies, but fuck you for making me side with Piers Morgan.
Ooh, takedown of Jim Jefferies right here on Taking the Mick.
So must do better, because you can there's so many ways you can mock Piers Morgan and make him out to be an idiot, but that's not one of them. So I was disappointed with that. I think we were pretty much out of decent questions. Anyway, is there any other topics or things you were desperate to get in?
I'm sure there was. I mean, it has been a few months, and all the things that I probably wanted to rant about, I've either ranted about or I've stopped caring.
All right. Well, this has been fun. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about Sedar and how that's going. Any new articles of interest we should be checking out at the minute?
Shazia Hobbs recently wrote a piece about FGM. She works for a charity, and she's just saying how there are, she's had to deal with some cases relating to FGM. And
have there been any prosecutions on this yet? Because it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
No, absolutely not. I don't know why. I don't know whether it is because of political correctness or whether it's just one of those things that's very, very difficult to actually prosecute somebody over. I mean, if there's an estimate number of girls that they're aware who have undergone it, and they say it's about 139,000 or something like that, then how would they know that information then? And then if they know that, then can they not prosecute the people behind it? It's all just a bit bizarre, really.
Yeah, it's a shame because I mean, I don't know if how many aware people are of this, but we do, strangely, Britain in the 21st century has a horrible problem with female genital mutilation in our communities. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of reported cases, and it is illegal. It was made illegal, I think maybe even in the 70s, if I'm right. I'm gonna have to look that up. Please don't take my word for it.
I think it was 85.
85. Okay. So a little,
but at least it's been illegal for quite some time.
Yes, and it continues to happen. The numbers are staggering, and there have been, to my knowledge, no prosecutions for this. So it's something that we need to really crack down on and look at, and look out for the telltale signs of when it's happening and deal with it more appropriately. Because I mean, come on. I don't even know. It makes me sick thinking about it. But these are young little girls that this is happening to. And
the thing is, I mean, people are going to talk about male circumcision, and they're going to say, "Oh, this is, what about male genital mutilation?" And okay, fine. If you don't believe in circumcising boys, and waiting until they're old enough to make the choice, that's fair enough. I get that. It should be about choice and consent. I agree. But you can't really compare the two. FGM is so much worse than male circumcision. The whole thing is designed to rob girls of any sexual pleasure whatsoever. Yeah, that's the whole point. Is to rob you of that. And in the most extreme cases, as they are stitched up down there, where they're only left with a tiny hole to urinate out of, and when it comes for time to them to either have sex or give birth, and they'll cut some of it open, and I don't even want to imagine what that must be like. It's ridiculous. Why is nobody outraged at the fact that, forget the health issues to one side, because that is obviously a massive point anyway. They're being robbed of the right to enjoy sexual pleasure.
But if anyone wants to get some sort of real information on this practice and what it's like and how it's not comparable to, male circumcision, it's worth picking up Ayaan Hirsi Ali's book, Infidel, someone who's suffered this and been through it, and it's quite a harrowing recount of that experience in the book. But even male circumcision, if someone was to say, here's a petition to sign to ban child circumcision for religious reasons or whatever, because obviously there are some legitimate reasons for circumcision. There can be complications, etc., where it becomes necessary. Just as a ritualistic practice, if people were to say that should be banned and made illegal, I'd be all for that, including males. I just think this weird conflation of this what about, because I see that a lot. Whenever I bang on about FGM, people ask me, what about male circumcision?
Yeah, for fuck's sake, why is it a competition? Yeah, it's not.
It's not.
It's not a competition.
As regrettable as it is for me for young children to go through male circumcision, you can actually go on to have healthy sexual lives, and minimal to no issues from it. I know there is, obviously documented problems and there is issues, and like I say, I'm not for it. I'd want it banned if possible, until you're of adult age to make the decision on your own. But it's just not a comparable practice. Different biology, different practice, different process, different results. So I think people should be a bit more sensitive about making that conflation.
Yeah, male circumcision isn't prescribed because they believe that their sexual pleasure will be reduced. That's not why they do it.
No.
Whereas that's exactly why they do it with girls. It's to stop them from any sexual pleasure and to control them.
Yes.
That's what it's for. It's for control.
Okay, well, I think genital mutilation is a good place as any to end the podcast. What do you think?
Well, actually, there is something I briefly wanted to mention if we have time.
Sure.
It's not something I'll talk for hours about.
Good.
Although
I think my bladder's got a good 4 minutes left in it.
I'll be quick. It's about the Conservative MP Nusrat Ghani. I don't know if you've heard, but she wants to get rid of the term honour killing in official reports when if someone has been a victim of some sort of crime. So she doesn't want it in police reports to mention that it's an honour crime, because she says that it actually doesn't help police with their jobs. It's making them more wary of solving the cases, I guess. The bill went through its first reading. It'll go through its second reading, I think, in March. And I do admire her. I really do. She's one of the few MPs I really do like. I think she's spot on with so many issues out there. So that's why I was a bit disappointed when she proposed this, because, as some TTM listeners might know, honour is such a big issue in some communities. Especially if you're from a certain background, if you've hurt the family honour in any way, you can pay the price for it, often with your life. And a lot of women's rights groups and campaigners, organisations, they said they're really against this move because they don't think it will help victims at all. It will actually make it worse. And if anything, we need to make more awareness of it. And if we remove the term honour or honour killing from official records, it's going to undo a lot of the work that they've done to raise awareness about this subject. And I'm with them on that. I can see why she thinks there's no honour in honour killings. I agree there's not, but that is the motive that these people use. And if we get rid of the term, I don't think it will help in any way.
I completely agree. And it does feel a little bit like it's an attempt to get Islamic-related problems off the books, in a sense. And I think, because obviously there's nothing honourable about this practice, but we need to identify it for the reasons that they're doing it. We need to call it what they say is why they're doing it, so it can be picked up on and catalogued accordingly and addressed. Because not every killing is this, for the same reasons. It's not done to the same extent. It's not, you've got to be able to differentiate between why things are happening, because once you can understand something, it becomes easier to spot and prevent.
Absolutely, yeah. And some of these crimes, they don't always lead to killings. It can lead to ostracization, or even you being scared to even say something out of turn because you think it's going to bring dishonor onto the family or the community. And this type of this honor thing, it affects so many things in life. And I think if we got rid of the term, it would just undo a lot of hard work that's being done to raise awareness of it.
All right, Iram, this has been a massive pleasure as usual, and we're both incredibly important and busy people, but we'll have to try and make time to get it out more.
We made
over March.
Time for our listeners.
We did.
Yes.
They don't know how lucky they are.
They don't.
All three of them.
Don't know they're born.
All right, Iram, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
You can keep up to date on the podcast at gspellchecker.com. I think we've all learned something here today.